Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I want you to imagine a place filled with soft music that no one could hear, silver cutlery resting on white linen, and a man sitting completely alone in the middle of it all. That man was named Adrian Hale, and he was a millionaire known across the city for his sharp mind, quiet generosity, and a silence that followed him everywhere he went. Adrian was deaf. He had been since he was a child. After an illness took his hearing but sharpened everything else. He read lips better than most people read books. He felt vibrations in the floor, emotions in a room, and intentions in the way people moved their hands. What he never felt, no matter how much money he had, was belonging. That night, Adrian sat in his favorite restaurant, the kind of place where people whispered even though there was no need to. Crystal glasses caught the warm light. Couples leaned toward each other, laughing softly, sharing moments Adrian could only observe from a distance. He came here often because the staff knew him, respected his silence, and never tried to make it awkward. They communicated with notes, gentle gestures, and patience. Still, every time he sat down alone, there was a heaviness in his chest that no expensive meal could fix. He watched the room carefully, as he always did. He noticed the way a waiter's shoulders tensed when a table complained, the way a woman smiled politely while checking her phone, the way loneliness could exist even in crowded spaces. Adrian knew that feeling intimately. He lifted his glass, feeling the faint vibration as it touched the table. Inside, in the corner of the restaurant, almost invisible to the guests, was a cleaning lady named Rosa. She worked late nights because it paid a little extra, and every extra bit mattered. Rosa was small, tired, and kind in a way that showed in how carefully she wiped tables and how she avoided interrupting anyone. Tonight was different though. Tonight, Rosa had her baby with her. The babysitter had canceled at the last minute, and Rosa had no family nearby. She couldn't afford to miss a shift, so she did the only thing she could. She strapped her baby Mateo to her chest with a worn cloth carrier and came to work. Mateo was only a few months old, round-cheeked, wide-eyed, and curious about everything. He made tiny sounds as Rosa moved, little coos and soft breaths, but he didn't cry. Rosa whispered apologies to no one in particular as she worked, praying the manager wouldn't notice. Adrian noticed immediately. He noticed because Mateo didn't make noise the way other babies did. Instead, he moved. His small hands reached outward, his fingers opening and closing, waving in the air. To anyone else, it might have looked like random baby movement. To Adrian, it felt familiar. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing not in suspicion, but in focus. Mateo's hands moved again, slower this time, clumsier. Adrian's heart skipped. He knew those movements. He had seen them his whole life. They weren't random. The baby was copying. Earlier that evening, one of the waiters had used simple hand gestures to ask Adrian if he wanted water or wine. Adrian had responded with a few signs, small, efficient motions he'd used since childhood. Mateo had been watching from Rosa's chest. Now, hours later, he was trying to do the same thing. Adrian felt something crack open inside him. He raised his hand gently, palm open, and made a simple sign. Hello. Mateo froze, stared, and then smiled. A big, toothless smile that lit up his entire face. His tiny hands moved again, attempting to mimic the sign. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even close. But it was intentional. Rosa noticed Adrian looking, and immediately panicked. She bowed her head slightly, mouthing apologies over and over, afraid she had done something wrong. Adrian shook his head quickly and smiled, pointing to Mateo, then to his own hands. He gestured for her to come closer. Rosa hesitated. People like Adrian didn't usually invite people like her to approach, but there was something gentle in his eyes, something almost childlike. She stepped closer, her hands trembling. Adrian slowly signed again. This time something even simpler. Friend, Mateo laughed, a silent laugh full of breath and joy, and kicked his little feet. His hands moved once more, copying the shape as best he could. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. She didn't understand sign language, but she understood kindness. She pressed a hand to her chest and nodded, overwhelmed. For the first time in years, Adrian wasn't alone at his table. He gestured for Rosa to sit for a moment, pointing to an empty chair nearby. She shook her head, gesturing toward her cleaning cart, her responsibilities. Adrian waved it away gently and picked up a pen and napkin. He wrote slowly, clearly, so she could understand. Please, 5 minutes. Rosa sat. Mateo stared at Adrian, as if he were the most fascinating thing in the world. Adrian signed again, slow and deliberate, not caring who watched. He signed about the lights, about the table, about the baby's bright eyes. Mateo responded, the only way he could, with smiles, kicks, and clumsy hand movements that mirrored Adrian's shapes. Other diners began to notice. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations slowed. People watched as a silent conversation unfolded between a man who had lost his hearing decades ago and a baby who hadn't yet learned to speak. Adrian felt something he hadn't felt since he was a child sitting with his grandmother, the only person who had ever learned sign language just for him. He felt seen, not as a millionaire, not as a quiet man in a corner, But as himself, Rosa wiped her eyes and stood up after a few minutes, apologizing again. Adrian shook his head and wrote another note. Thank you for sharing him with me. That should have been the end of it. Just a small, beautiful moment in an ordinary night. But life had other plans. The next evening, Adrian returned to the restaurant. He chose the same table, half hoping, half expecting nothing. He told himself not to be foolish. People came and went. Moments passed. But then, from the corner of his eye, he saw Rosa. She froze when she saw him, unsure if she should approach. Adrian smiled and waved. Rosa approached slowly. Matteo strapped to her chest once again. This time, before Adrian could sign anything, Matteo lifted his hands and made a shape. It was clearer now. Still imperfect, still clumsy, but unmistakable. Hello. Adrian laughed silently, his shoulders shaking, his eyes shining. He clapped his hands softly, feeling the vibration, and signed back with enthusiasm. Rosa watched in awe as her baby and a stranger communicated in a language she didn't know but somehow understood. Night after night, the pattern continued. Adrian dined alone, but he was never lonely anymore. Rosa cleaned, Matteo learned, Adrian taught. Simple signs turned into little stories. Food, light, happy friend. Matteo absorbed it all like he was born for it. Adrian learned Rosa's story through notes and gestures. She was a single mother. Her husband had left before Matteo was born. She worked 2 jobs. She dreamed of giving her son a better life, one where he wouldn't have to struggle the way she did. Rosa learned Adrian's story too, how he had inherited his fortune young, how people often mistook his silence for coldness, how he funded charities quietly, without his name attached, how he had always wanted a family but never believed anyone would choose a life that required so much patience. One night, something happened that changed everything. The restaurant was crowded, louder than usual. Adrian could feel the vibrations through the floor, through his chair. He noticed Rosa moving faster, stress in her shoulders. Matteo was restless, his face scrunching in discomfort. Rosa tried to soothe him, bouncing gently, whispering apologies to nearby tables. Matteo began to cry. The sound didn't reach Adrian's ears, but he saw it instantly. The way heads turned, the way Rosa's face flushed with embarrassment and fear, the way the manager started to walk over, his expression tight before anyone could say anything. Matteo did the unthinkable. Through his tears, through his tiny sobs, he lifted his hands and signed one word. Help. It wasn't perfect. It was small and shaky, but it was clear. The entire room fell silent, not because of the sound, but because of the sight. A baby, signing. A cleaning lady frozen in shock. A deaf man standing abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. Adrian moved quickly, gently signaling to the manager to stop. He knelt in front of Rosa and Matteo, signing calmly, slowly. Safe. Okay. Friend. Matteo's crying slowed. His hands relaxed. He leaned toward Adrian, trusting him completely. Adrian turned to the manager and wrote on a notepad with firm strokes. He is fine. They are with me. No one argued. That night, Adrian made a decision. He offered Rosa something she never expected. Not money, not charity, opportunity. He funded a program for working parents at the restaurant, on the condition that Rosa be trained as a coordinator. Better hours, better pay. He also offered to cover childcare costs. No strings attached. Rosa cried harder than Matteo ever had. Adrian didn't stop there. He hired a sign language tutor for Rosa so she could learn alongside her son. He arranged his schedule so he could be present, not just as a benefactor, but as a teacher, a friend. Months passed. Matteo's hands grew steadier, his signs clearer. Rosa's confidence blossomed. Adrian's table was no longer a place of solitude, but of laughter, movement, and connection. People in the restaurant began learning signs too. Hello, thank you, friend. The place changed. It became warmer, kinder, more human. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the lights came on, Matteo waddled toward Adrian on unsteady legs. He looked up, lifted his hands, and signed 3 words. Love you, friend. Adrian didn't try to hide his tears. In that moment, the deaf millionaire who once dined alone realized something profound. Wealth wasn't what filled the silence in his life. Connection did, and sometimes, the smallest hands could make the loudest impact. If this story touched your heart even a little, remember that kindness doesn't need a voice to be heard. It just needs someone willing to see it. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.